important to build a different kind of network. So we call it a network of trust. Because you cannot base this concept on a linear way, as this is always based on control. You need to build a different way of a partnership where you can trust.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is your favorite time of the week. It's my favorite time of the week. It's time for Leaders Talk Season 2. I am, as always, your intrepid host, Andrew Dupy, Chief of Communications here at Leaders Brands. And today I have with me a very special guest. This is Albin Kaelin. Let me take a second to introduce you to Albin, and then Albin's going to take it from there. So Albin, from his experience, instilled a principle to never accept anything that lacks clarity. He strives to shape his life meaningfully, both for himself and for his community. Professionally, he is dedicated to fostering innovations that create sustainable product concepts. He transforms waste into valuable nutrients and other products. He navigates the old system, embodying responsibility without simply agreeing or disagreeing. From 1981 to 2004, Albin served as managing director of Roner Textile AG in Switzerland, where the company generated 19 international design awards for his leadership. He's also initiated Climatex product line in 1993, and he pioneered the idea of cradle-to-cradle products globally. In 2001, he received the UBS Key Trophy as the Rhine Valley Entrepreneur of the Year, and he is also, importantly, an author for Leaders Brands. He is his book Rebel to Radical Innovator: Leading the Transformation Through Circularity is available right now, and he's also going to be featured in Leadership DNA. Albin, welcome. That's a lot. I know there's a whole lot more to it. I know we're going to really dig into this whole cradle to cradle thing, but yeah, just take a second to introduce yourself to our audience and let us know what you're all about.
Yes, thank you very much, Andrew. Yes, it's a pleasure to be with you today.
Pleasure having you, yeah.
So what's the topic? We have all been educated to think linear, and all our systems we are living in are based on linear thinking. And this is cradle to grave. Right. There is no future because we are destroying resources, and most of the resources are even toxic. So this is an issue because the future generations will not have enough resources available.
Right.
And that is a huge issue. So it's our responsibility basically to change the system and to change the way how we basically behave on this planet. And the concept is called cradle to cradle. So we need to change the way of thinking, how we are producing our products, how we as consumers are basically returning the products so that the resources can be kept in a closed loop.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's an easier said than done idea, though, I tell you, because I mean, we all know that we have to have some kind of resource, basically resource saving. We have to have something that can build sustainability for the future, but it's really hard to actually find out the way to do that and convince everybody to get on board. So what's your methodology that you feel is different?
Well, the topic is it's a different way of thinking. So it's, a matter of change, and who does like to get a change done? Right. So how do you really try to implement this? I have now an experience of working on this on over 32 years. I was the first one in the world who really did this concept and applied it. It's from William McDonough, an American architect, and from Michael Braungart, a German chemist. And the product that we initiated from it was an upholstery fabric. And if you're flying with Airbus A380, the largest passenger aircraft, on economy class, you're sitting on my innovation. It can get as close as it is. Yeah. And basically, this fabric is edible. What does that mean? We don't like you to eat fabric.
Don't eat your seats on the Airbus, ladies and gentlemen.
But when you're sitting in an aircraft, you have a lot of basically ventilation going on. Yeah. So you have a lot of fibers basically in the air. And if you inhale these fibers, they should not harm.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's a totally different kind of quality aspect that we need to generate. So coming back to your question, how do you need to basically implement this in management?
Right. Yeah.
So it's not only materials, it's not only chemistry, it's not only, coloring and all accessories, what comes to it. It becomes as well important to build a different kind of network.
Mhm.
So we call it a network of trust.
Okay.
Because you cannot base this concept on a linear way, as this is always based on control. You need
Gotcha.
to build a different way of a partnership where you can trust. This sounds very easy, but it's quite hard to get. It depends on people, basically
Right.
selecting the right people. And if one is not behaving within the network, everything falls apart.
Right.
So it's critical. So you need basically a different way how to approach the people. So it's not to do any, I would say, missionary approach or brainwashing.
Right.
Our concept is we basically try to give information so that every individual being part of the project can decide based on his personal values if this makes sense.
Mhm.
If it makes sense, then you can be assured that the person is motivated to participate.
Right.
So it basically generates another kind of understanding within a project and makes it much easier because everyone wants to give a positive contribution.
Right.
But the tools that management has today are as well based on linear thinking.
Completely. I mean, especially in the United States, American business is 100% linear, and it's also 100% like top down with limited ability to think outside the box. So that's got to be a challenge.
So it's not only the US, it's globally.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I think, and this needs to change because what can we do so that we can regain the resources so that they are not being lost for future generation?
Right.
So how can you manage this in a proper way? And you cannot do it the only way in basically telling people how to do it. You need the tools to do this. So, and I developed tools over 30 years now, basically a different kind of methodology of accounting. Because how do you want to prove basically a project with this new concept is working with a linear-based accounting system? So we needed to change accounting. So we call it circular accounting, EPS Switzerland, as an example.
Okay.
There are different kind of toolbox, cradle to cradle, that we implement. You basically fill a toolbox with materials, chemicals, colors, whatever, and you define it in a way that everything included is positive with an integrated supply chain. And everything coming out of the toolbox, which is defined positively, can only be okay. So it's a kind of a positive definition, not trying to make it less bad, trying to
Right.
make it good. And this is fundamentally different and a huge challenge. But once you really get it and once you realize it makes sense, basically the generation of new impacts is enormous.
Right. And what kind of impact can we expect to see from implementing a cradle to cradle idea methodology?
Yes, the impact is that the rules that you just mentioned in management, top down, very linear, you need to throw them away.
Okay.
Okay, so it's very radical. So that's why the book is called.
That's why the book calls you a radical.
So that's why the book is called From Rebel to Radical Innovator.
Yeah.
Because if you start to make compromises, you will never be able to make the change happen.
Gotcha.
You can only make a change happen through innovation. And that's the major point. So this is the way why we want to lead the transformation through circularity. So, and it's about the transformation of industry. And this is crucial. So basically not every stone remains on the same place. So how basically can you attract managers who are in business, who have responsibilities? How can you basically bring them back on this path? It's quite challenging because there are a lot of opportunities, but as well, there are a lot of risks.
Yeah, and that's in many situations, you're going to find people that are well entrenched or risk averse.
Yes, correct. So, and this basically you can only reduce when you really give a lot of information, what it's all about. Okay, so you can make your own assumptions according to your personal values, and you can basically find an orientation, and we have over 30 years of experience. You can get an orientation so that you can make a decision. And this is something that I wanted to give back to managers, to students of economics, or engineers or designers, giving something back from my own experience, because it is important, it is crucial that we start this transformation now.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I mean, the time to be doing what you're talking about doing was probably 20 years ago. I mean, so we absolutely need to catch on. So, I mean, is this why you feel like writing was one of the better ways to begin to build that educational foundation to start educating people to understanding this method?
Yes, it's all about everything we are living in. It's about education, which is as well based linear. And you need to find basically tools to students so they understand the concept, to think in a different way. To move basically from linear to circular thinking. So in the book, we have a workshop that we can basically, you can do, every reader can do it together with his family, with friends, or even with children. So they are creating their own product. And there are only 5 elements that they need to follow. So they really start easily to go into that mood and basically define a new way of thinking so they can apply circular thinking on just a very easy example. So you need to demonstrate that it's possible. Okay. And yeah, we had 20 years of work that we needed to really define the right materials, the right chemistry, the right colors. Normally in business, if you're not succeeding within 1.5 years of return of investment, you're out.
Yeah.
But most of them took between 10 and 20 years.
Right.
So you need really, looking at things totally different. You need to integrate the supply chain. You need to integrate consumers. You need to integrate basically the companies taking it back and bring it back, the raw materials into the supply chain. And this is really hard to do. We have projects running with over 100 companies involved. So how can you manage this? You cannot manage this in the old-fashioned way. This doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that 100 companies. How do you manage that? How do you coordinate that and actually get that to function together?
Yes, as I mentioned before, it's really giving them information so that they can decide by their own personal values if it makes sense.
Right. So this is why they have to buy in.
So, and then they're bought in, and then they will contribute. And then you need basically to tell them the right kind of goals you want to achieve. Yeah. And it's fascinating to see how people really get excited in this process. Because, it really does make sense to do it in a good way, not in less bad. It really makes sense. And then you have the first successes, the second successes, and then suddenly it gives a dynamism. It's enormous and it's wonderful to watch. Of course, we have some things which are not really working. Okay. which fail. This is normal. But this is life. And in the book, we have as well some examples, from David and Goliath. Okay, so where the big players are really, putting on barriers. And then we try to basically crash this with startup companies. Okay, so it's quite interesting to read as well, that you can see what is really happening. And where do we start in the book first? It's the history of the chemical industry.
Okay.
What did happen with the chemical industry? Why are so many materials toxic today? What has happened? And I think everyone reading this book, understanding the history, what really happened, and why we have these kind of topics today, I think becomes obvious. But as well, of course, there are some leaders there. There are some pioneers in this chemical industry and the industry for materials. And these are the ones that we want to celebrate.
Yeah. And I mean, I can kind of guess of why some of the ways that we have begun to do things the way we did is basically it was profitable. And I know that there are a lot of businessmen out there that's going to be their first obstacle to what you're saying. That's going to be their first kickback, is saying, well, Albin, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I like the idea of sustainability, but is it profitable? Is it something that I'm going to be able to do for my business that is going to be able to make me the amount of money that I'm making right now with the way I've done things for a long time? And that will be the wall that I think that probably would be put up by a lot. I mean, how do you get past that?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. I'm a businessman myself. I'm even a manufacturing guy. Okay,
Yeah.
So we see now basically that manufacturing becomes really crucial.
Yeah.
Okay, if you look at new innovations that are happening, if you don't are enabling it to become a right manufacturer, it's going to fail.
Gotcha.
But how are you going to show it's profitable? You cannot show it with the current accounting system. This is why I said it before. You need basically to demonstrate in new figures that this is possible and feasible.
Gotcha.
And all our products, all our projects, and there are many that we have done, they have proven that they don't need to be more expensive in sales than normally products. If you look it from a business point of view, if you're looking it from a marketing point of view, yes, there might be some products which are more expensive, but this is not a business decision. It's primarily a marketing decision, because you see that you can probably generate some better money for this.
Yeah, yeah, and that makes complete sense. Albin, as we're kind of starting to get to the point where we begin to wrap up, what is the advice that you would give to our audience that, let's call it maybe a golden nugget, just something that kind of wraps up everything we've talked about into something practical that they could use, even if they're somebody small, that they could use right now to actually begin to improve their business and start to walk a little bit more towards sustainability?
So I think it's very important that you really start thinking in the circular way. And how can you do this? So this is the reason why we included this Cradle to Cradle design workshop in the book. We call it the cooking book.
Okay.
Okay, so you can really start to really dive into it. You have an example. Anyone basically can decide which product they want to do. If they want to do a skateboard or a toothbrush, okay, or a napkin or whatever, it can be done. And these are 5 rules. They can do it. So they get a success, but they realize as well the difficulties that they are coming up to, because they need to decide, am I going into a biological cycle or a technical cycle? How do I do this? What kind of materials are the good materials that I need to implement, the right chemicals, the good chemicals? So, and then how do I set up the entire supply chain? How do I set up basically the take back of the materials, of the products at some point? And the last question is, what needs to be changed in the behavior of the consumer? And all of us, we are consumers. So what is the scoop that needs to be changed, that basically a circular economy can be really be established, and that we can maintain the raw materials for future generations, and they should not be toxic.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Learn by doing. I love that. Yeah.
But it's a different mindset, you know, and
Yeah.
this is difficult. How can you get into a different kind of mindset?
Yeah.
You can only do it really through small examples.
Yeah, and that's beautiful, because then you can actually begin to have the idea of how this works from the little to the large by actually doing it and seeing it. I think that's brilliant. That's a fantastic way of teaching, Albin. I think is the one that will most resonate with people and can actually create some change.
And this is why I'm offering, as an incentive for the book, I'm offering a digital online workshop, Cradle to Cradle design workshop. So it goes for 2 hours. We can make it globally. We have it in Asia, we have it in Europe and the US. And basically, people within groups, they can develop their own products. We will give some support, and then they will make a presentation to all of the attendees. And then we will give all some feedback from projects that we have generated, you know, throughout all the large experience we have. And then this becomes very dynamic. People are surprised. They are becoming, you know, energized, because they realize that there is something so good about this.
Yeah.
And it's a change, and the change needs to happen.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it has to happen. We don't really have a choice in the matter. And I think that you are on to something of the right way to make it happen. Well, Albin, for our audience, we're going to have those links down below, but what are some other ways that they can find out more about you?
Well, you know, you can check basically at Google. You can get the book at all the different, you know, links that you have. You can buy them online. So there is an ebook version, which is below $7 because it's for students as well. Okay, so that's important that they can afford it. There will be a soft cover version. There will be a hardcover version available, and mid of December, there will be an audiobook as well coming up.
Fantastic. And ladies and gentlemen, those links are also down below, and you can find them through the Leaders Brand's website and through any place in which books are sold. Albin, it was a pleasure. We're going to meet back probably again later. I want to hear how all of this continues to help us and you in the future. But until then, sir, that's our time for the day. I really appreciate you being here. And it was very fascinating.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the invitation. And, you know, let's go and buy the book.
Yes, absolutely, everybody. Go ahead and click that link, buy the book, and we will wish you the best of luck in your endeavors.